Hey everyone, it's Dave from BC Bushcraft here again today, and I'm going to be doing a simple video today just showing you how you guys can field sharpen your Mora companion. You'll only need a few things to be able to sharpen this in the field, and I've seen a lot of other videos where people are bringing out like Japanese water stones and big buckets and stuff like that out into the forest to sharpen their tools, and I just don't think that's a realistic expectation, especially for a lot of the common people, to have those types of things and to do something like that. So I'll show you what I do to get this thing razor sharp and able to cut the hairs off of your arms if you want to. So stay tuned. So there are two main things that you want to acquire to be able to field sharpen your knives when you're out in the field. And the first one is some type of stone. This stone here is a die sharp fine. It's actually a 600 grit diamond stone. It's only one-sided, but that means it's affordable. And I believe I purchased this on Amazon. I don't know. Things change on Amazon so often that the price point of this has probably changed, but I think I got around $12. There's different other stones around this size that you can get. You don't have to get something like this, but I suggest something that has a grit of around 600 to 1,000 grit. I find that it's a good balance between taking away a decent amount of material, but also giving you a really good edge just with the stone itself. If you're bringing really fine grit stones into the field, you might not be able to get out some of the damage that you might have caused to your knife. So I find that 600 maybe to 1,000 grit is about the right grit because it's fine enough to get you a really nice edge just with the stone alone. Without sacrificing not being able to have damage control. So there's other stones that you can get. One of them is the DC4 Falcon Even, and another one that I would suggest is the Spyderco double stuff. And they're ceramic, two-sided. This is only one-sided, but this is all I need to get my Mora to be razor sharp. Next up, you want to try to make yourself some type of strop. Now, it's not incredibly overcomplicated to make your own leather strop like this. All I did was take a piece of wood, scrap piece of wood that had a bit of a rounded edge here, so I could sharpen a crook knife or something on it. And I took a scrap piece of leather that I found at a garage sale that is actually just old pair of glasses case that I cut in half, and I just epoxied it to the piece of wood, and now I have a leather strop that I can bring into the field. One thing about leather is the thinner the leather, usually better for getting your knife edge really sharp, just because that if you have thicker leather, like I used to strop on my belt and it's thicker leather, when you go to strop your knife like this, it compresses the leather, making it so you can actually remove the shoulders of your Scandi grind, which is not a big deal. It just convexes your knife a little bit. So it's just something to take into consideration when you're choosing the type of leather for your strop. I prefer thinner leather because it kind of holds its form better and it won't remove your shoulders from your Scandi grind as much as thick, spongy leather will. Regardless, you could still use the thick, spongy leather to get your knife razor sharp. So first up, I'll try to show you that this knife is not razor sharp yet, and it's not taking any of my hair away off my arm. You can see that, I'm not just taking a really sharp knife and pretending to sharpen it. You can see that it's not removing any of the hair, and it needs a little bit of a touch-up. So first of all, what you can do is take a look at your knife edge under some light, and you can see if you have any rolls and see if any light is reflecting back. And I can see a few spots here that the knife has rolled over and basically means I will have to touch it up with the stone. So my technique that I use when I'm using my stone is I tend to hold it like this, and then I rest my knife like so, and I just follow the edge. You can see it wants to just do that when you put your knife and you put the bevel onto the stone. All you have to do is close that gap and you'll feel the angle, and then you simply just drag your knife across the stone like so. So you can do this a few times on one side. 3, 4, 5. And whatever you do, you want to do on the opposite way. So for the opposite way, I just take my knife, hold it in the same position, do the same thing, except I'm going to come towards myself this time, like so. Now to maintain the angle, when you come towards the tip, you want to try to bring your knife up a little bit because of the way that the knife is shaped. So when I'm coming this way, I tend to lift up just ever so slightly so that the contact remains consistent all the way through. As you can see with the knife that I have a patina on it, and you can see where the material is being removed. Now, partly one reason why you can see that I'm kind of putting a micro bevel onto this knife. And the reason for that is this knife has been slightly convexed over time from sharpening it on a thicker piece of leather, so it's not a perfect Scandi. And that's okay. There's no reason why that it won't become a really sharp knife because of that. It actually increases the strength of your knife edge if it's convexed in this type of way. So if you had a perfect Scandinavian grind that wasn't slightly convex like mine, you would be removing material all the way from the tip to the shoulder. Because this Mora companion has been slightly convexed over time, all I'm doing is removing material from the edge, creating a micro bevel. Some people don't like to have a micro bevel, but I find a micro bevel useful, so I actually encourage a micro bevel on all of my Scandinavian grinds. And just because I like that type of grind when I'm in the field, and it's a little bit stronger, and you don't really notice too much of a difference as far as carving and stuff like that. It's very, very minute, so there's nothing wrong with putting a micro bevel onto your knife. So to summarize what I've been doing, all I've been doing is taking my knife, bringing it across my stone. You can go back and forth like this to make sure you have an accurate number of strokes. And I don't know, maybe do it about 5 to 10 times depending on the damage of your knife. So you can check your edge again with the light, see if you've removed the burrs and rolling that you have seen on your knife, and I've done that with this one so far. So the next point you can move on to is actually stropping this knife. So for stropping this knife, it's important to at least have a flat surface. And I mean, I'm on a stump right now, and you can figure out something when you're out there just to be able to rest this piece of wood on. But that's why it's very nice to have a nice flat piece of wood, because it makes stropping your knife a lot easier. So the same thing goes when you're stropping your knife, is that you want to have your bevel sitting on the leather just like so. Instead of going against the leather like you would with a stone, you're going to reverse the exact same procedure, and you're going to strop like that towards yourself and away from yourself. Now you can do this in several ways. My body is aligned here, and this is sitting perpendicular to where my body is. I like to hold it like this and pull back like so. So we're going to do this maybe 5 times. So that's 5. So either you could hold it here or hold it here as an example. 6 times, 7 times, 8 times. So now for the other way, I like to flip the piece of wood around, and I like to go this way because I feel like I have more control over the knife. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have to always remember to do exactly the same on either side, 8 times, 8 times, 5 times, 5 times, however many times need be to get this edge sharp. I would usually say that stropping between 5 to 10 times, you're most likely, if it's not sharp by then you're going to have to touch it up on the stone again. That's roughly right around the right time, or the right amount of strokes that you need to get this razor sharp. Now, if you want to accentuate your micro bevel, what you can do is place your knife like you usually would, and then just pull up ever so slightly and give it a few strops with the knife pulled up just a little bit. Do that on the same side. Lift up ever so slightly. 1, 2, 3. And that should give you a razor sharp edge. One thing I forgot to mention before I started doing this is that when you're stropping, it's a good idea to put stropping compound onto your leather simply by just buying stropping compound and rubbing it onto the leather. And this will give you a nice buffed edge too. Also, if you want to remove rust off of your knife or you're doing maintenance out in the field, some steel wool helps. It will help loosen and take off the surface rust of your knife. I find that a lot of people have steel wool, and it's a very common item, and it's something that does pretty well without actually scratching your knife blade up. And you can see it doesn't remove the patina that I have on my knife either. Another item that can also remove rust off of your knife blade is the blue side of an eraser. And this can also, because it has some grit inside the eraser, it's no different than they actually have erasers meant for removing rust, like a Lansky. I think it's called a Lansky eraser or something like that. But these erasers work well too to take rust off of your knife blade, because the Mora companion is carbon steel and it will rust in the field. So I'm going to just give it a few more strops with some of the stropping compound on there, just to show you that you can, how it would look like when you got the compound on there. And I'll try one more time to see if I can show you that it really does remove hair. But you can see that I'm removing hair, and I now have a bald patch right here. And basically just shows that my knife sharpening technique will remove hair like this. So once you're done with the sharpening process and you've got your knife to the degree of sharpness that you want to put some oil on it to protect that carbon steel blade. And the oil that I have is olive oil, and it's not the most ideal oil because it does go rancid, as a subscriber has told me. And I basically just take a little drop though and coat one side, coat the other side with my finger. Just be careful not to drag your finger across that knife edge. And that will just help it from rusting when you put it away and give it some protection when you're using it, but it will wipe off quite quickly. If you're using an oil like olive oil, which does go rancid, just make sure to change it out before it does go rancid, and also to clean your knife off every once in a while so you don't have problems with bacterial growth and things like that. Or you can just go and purchase mineral oil or some other oil that doesn't have the issue of going rancid. Anyways, I hope that this video helped you guys just to show you how you can field sharpen your Mora companion out in the field with not too many products, and you can get an incredibly sharp edge on it that will cut the hair off of your leg. And it will also help you in processing your wood and doing all of those sorts of things. And that only took like a few minutes for me to do, And if you do this often enough, your knife will be really sharp and you will never have to do major damage control and bring the knife back to life by using bigger stones and Japanese water stones and things like that. Most of the time, this is all that I use to sharpen my knives because I just keep up the maintenance on them and they never get that dull and they always stay very sharp. So until the next time, I hope you guys enjoy this video. It's Dave from BC Bushcraft. Please like, please subscribe, and as always, have a good one.